I never imagined that the woman who promised to build a life with me would forget our daughter's birthday because she was too busy texting her lover. My name is Peter. I'm a cardiovascular surgeon at Orlando Regional Medical Center, and for 12 years I thought I had the perfect marriage with Valentine. We lived in a beautiful house in Winter Park with our 2 kids, Mason, who's 10, and Lily, who just turned 7. Well, she just turned 7, but her mother wasn't there to see it. Valentine was a Pilates instructor at one of those upscale studios in downtown Orlando. She was always passionate about fitness, always energetic, always present. Or at least, she used to be. Our golden retriever, Cooper, seemed to notice the change before I did. He'd whine at the door when Valentine left for work, something he'd never done before. It started subtly. Valentine began staying late at the studio, claiming new clients needed evening sessions. I didn't question it. I worked long hours at the hospital, sometimes 36-hour shifts, so I understood career dedication. But then the phone became an extension of her hand. At dinner, during the kids' homework time, even when we were supposedly watching movies together, her fingers would dance across the screen, and she'd smile in a way she hadn't smiled at me in months. The real wake-up call came on a Tuesday afternoon. I was between surgeries when I got a call from Mason's school. My son was standing in the office, confused and embarrassed, because no one had picked him up. Valentine had forgotten. She'd simply forgotten our child. When I called her, breathless with worry and anger, she sounded distracted, almost annoyed that I was bothering her. "Oh my God, Peter, I'm so sorry. I got caught up with a client. I'll get him now." But I'd already left the hospital. I was already there. The following week, Mason had his championship soccer game. He'd been talking about it for months. It was the regional finals. Valentine promised she'd be there. I saved the date, rearranged my schedule, made sure I could leave the hospital. Mason kept looking at the stands, searching for his mother. She never came. After the game, which his team won, my 10-year-old son asked me a question that broke my heart. "Does Mom not love us anymore?" I didn't have an answer. Then came Lily's 7th birthday. We'd planned a party at the house, nothing extravagant, just family and a few of her friends. I'd taken the entire day off, decorated the living room with princess-themed balloons and streamers. I'd picked up the custom cake from the bakery. Lily had wanted a castle with pink towers. The kids started arriving at 2 o'clock. By 3, everyone was asking where Valentine was. I called her 6 times. No answer. I texted. Nothing. The party continued without her, and I watched my daughter blow out her candles with tears in her eyes, trying to smile for her friends while constantly glancing at the door. That night, after the kids were asleep and Valentine finally came home at 11, she had the audacity to say she'd lost track of time at the studio. Something in me cracked that night, but I didn't confront her. Not yet, because I needed to know the truth, and I had a feeling the truth was bigger than I wanted to believe. The answer came from an unexpected source. Jennifer had been coming to Valentine's Pilates classes for 3 years. She was also a nurse at my hospital, though we rarely crossed paths. She worked in pediatrics, I worked in cardiology. One morning, she approached me in the cafeteria, and I could see the conflict on her face. "Dr. Harrison, can we talk somewhere private?" We went to an empty conference room. Jennifer was uncomfortable, fidgeting with her coffee cup, avoiding eye contact. "I don't know how to say this, and maybe it's not my place, but I think you should know what's going on at the studio." My stomach dropped before she even continued. "Valentine has been involved with one of the other instructors. Sebastian. Everyone at the studio knows about it. They disappear together after classes. They're always touching, always whispering. Last week, I saw them in his car in the parking lot, and..." She trailed off, but I understood. I thanked Jennifer, kept my voice steady, professional. Then I went to the bathroom and threw up. That evening, I told Valentine I had to work a night shift. Instead, I drove to her studio. I parked across the street, far enough away that my car wouldn't be noticed, and I waited. The last class ended at 8:30. Clients trickled out, then the other instructors. At 9:15, Valentine emerged with a man I'd never seen before, tall, muscular, probably in his late 20s. Sebastian. I watched them walk to his car, watched her laugh at something he said, watched her touch his arm in a way that was unmistakably intimate. They didn't leave immediately. They sat in his car for nearly 45 minutes, and I didn't need to see through the tinted windows to know what was happening. When she finally got out and drove away in her own car, I sat there in the darkness, trying to process the death of my marriage. I went home. She was already there in her pajamas, acting like she'd just had a normal day at work. "How was your shift?" she asked casually. "Enlightening," I said. Something in my tone made her pause, but she didn't push it. Over the next 2 weeks, I followed her 4 more times. Each time the same pattern. She'd stay late, meet Sebastian, and I'd document everything with photos from my phone. I also did something else. I consulted with the best divorce attorney in Orlando. The attorney's name was Margaret Thornton, a woman in her 60s with a reputation for being absolutely ruthless in court. She reviewed my evidence, took notes on Valentine's negligence with the children, and outlined a strategy. Florida is a no-fault divorce state, so the affair itself won't impact the divorce decree directly, she explained. But her neglect of the children, the pattern of absence, the documented proof of her prioritizing this relationship over her parental duties, that will matter significantly in custody arrangements. "I want full custody," I said. "I want her to understand what she's thrown away." Margaret nodded. "We'll make it happen. But there's something else you should consider. Her income as a Pilates instructor is minimal compared to yours. Normally, she might be entitled to significant alimony. However, if we can prove she's been cohabiting with this Sebastian person, or if we can demonstrate that her affair led to the breakdown of the marriage and her parental neglect, we can fight that." "Do whatever it takes," I said. The plan was methodical. First, I secured our finances. I opened a separate bank account and began redirecting my paychecks. I documented every instance of Valentine's absence, the missed pickups, the forgotten birthday, the soccer game. I collected text messages where she'd promised to be somewhere and wasn't. I recorded conversations with Mason and Lily's teachers about Valentine's lack of involvement in their schoolwork. Then, I did something Valentine never saw coming. I invited Sebastian to the house. I found his contact information through the studio's website. I called him from an unknown number, told him I was interested in private training sessions, and asked if he could come to my home for a consultation. He agreed, probably thinking he'd land a wealthy client. When Sebastian arrived on that Saturday afternoon, Valentine was out shopping with her mother. I'd arranged that too. I opened the door, and I'll never forget the look on his face when he recognized me. "You must be Sebastian," I said calmly. "Come in. We have a lot to discuss." He looked like he wanted to run, but curiosity, or maybe fear, kept him rooted. He stepped inside. Cooper growled at him, which I found oddly satisfying. "I know about you and my wife," I said once we were in the living room. "I've known for weeks. I have photos, videos, a timeline of every encounter. But I'm not here to threaten you or fight you. I'm here to make something very clear." Sebastian was pale, stammering. "Look, man, I didn't know she was married at first dash." "Don't lie to me in my own home," I interrupted. "You knew. Everyone at the studio knows. What you didn't know is that I'm a surgeon. I work 80-hour weeks to provide for my family. This house, the cars, the life Valentine has been living, that's all from my work. And you know what else you didn't know? She has 2 children who she's been neglecting while she's been with you." I showed him photos on my phone, Lily crying at her birthday party, Mason alone at the school office, texts from their teachers expressing concern. "This is what your relationship with my wife has cost," I said. "These are real children with real pain. I hope you're proud of yourself." Sebastian looked genuinely shocked. "I didn't. She said the kids were fine, that you were never home anyway dash." "Of course she did," I said. "People having affairs are excellent liars. They have to be. Here's what's going to happen now. I'm divorcing Valentine. I'm seeking full custody of my children based on her neglect and abandonment. And you're going to testify about the affair if needed. Or, if you prefer, I can make sure everyone in Orlando's fitness community knows exactly what kind of person you are. I know people at every major gym and studio in this city. Your career would be over." "You can't do that," he protested weakly. "Watch me," I said. "But if you cooperate, if you stay away from my wife starting today, if you end whatever this is, I'll leave you out of it. Your choice. You have 30 seconds to decide." He chose self-preservation like I knew he would. He agreed to end things with Valentine immediately, and to provide a written statement to my attorney detailing the affair. I had him sign a document Margaret had prepared, acknowledging the relationship and agreeing to the terms. After he left, I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not anger. Just emptiness. The real confrontation with Valentine came 3 days later. I'd spent those days preparing mentally, arranging for my parents to take the kids for the weekend, and finalizing my strategy with Margaret. When Valentine came home from the studio that Friday evening, I was sitting at the kitchen table with a folder in front of me. "We need to talk," I said. She set down her gym bag, and I saw the flicker of worry cross her face. "About what?" "About Sebastian." The color drained from her face. "Peter, I can explain dash." "No," I cut her off. "You can't explain forgetting your daughter's birthday. You can't explain abandoning your son at school. You can't explain missing his championship game. You can't explain 12 years of marriage thrown away for some guy at your studio." She started crying, which I'd expected. "It just happened, Peter. You're never home. I felt alone, and Sebastian was there dash. Don't you dare blame this on me," I said, and my voice was cold in a way I'd never heard before. "I worked to provide for this family. Every long shift, every missed dinner, every exhausting day, it was for you and the kids. And you repaid that by cheating and neglecting our children." "I made a mistake," she sobbed. "I'll end it. We can fix this dash." "It's already ended," I said. "I made sure of that. And no, we can't fix this. I'm filing for divorce. Margaret Thornton is my attorney. Maybe you've heard of her. I have documentation of your affair, your neglect of Mason and Lily, and Sebastian's written statement. I'm seeking full custody, and you won't fight it." "You can't take my children from me," she screamed. "You took yourself from them," I replied. "I'm just making it official. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to move out of this house this weekend. You can take your personal belongings, but that's it. We'll split our assets according to Florida law, but don't expect alimony. Your affair and neglect make that complicated for you. You'll get visitation rights with the kids, supervised at first, but full custody stays with me." "Peter, please dash." "I'm not finished," I continued. "You're also going to sit down with Mason and Lily and tell them the truth. Age-appropriate truth, but truth nonetheless. They deserve to know why their mother forgot them, why she wasn't there. They deserve to hear you take responsibility." Valentine was hysterical now, but I felt nothing watching her cry. This woman had betrayed everything we built, had hurt our children, and now she was facing consequences. "You have until Sunday to move out," I said, standing up. "I'll be with the kids at my parents' house. Don't be here when we get back." The conversation with Mason and Lily was the hardest thing I've ever done, harder than any surgery, harder than any medical emergency. We sat in my parents' backyard, Cooper lying at our feet, and I tried to explain that sometimes adults make mistakes, that their mother loved them but had lost her way, that we were going to live differently now. Mason, wise beyond his 10 years, just nodded. I knew something was wrong. She wasn't Mom anymore. Lily cried and asked if it was her fault. I held her and promised her it wasn't, that she was perfect and loved and none of this was because of her. Valentine did move out that weekend. When we returned home on Sunday evening, her presence was erased from the house. The divorce proceedings took 6 months. Margaret was as ruthless as promised. Valentine tried to fight for joint custody, but the evidence was overwhelming. The school records, the testimony from teachers and other parents, the documented absences, Sebastian's statement, it all painted a picture of a mother who'd abandoned her responsibilities. In the end, I got full custody with Valentine receiving supervised visitation every other weekend. The house remained mine. I'd bought it before our marriage with a substantial down payment from my inheritance. Our other assets were split, but without the alimony she'd hoped for, Valentine's financial situation became precarious. She had to move into a small apartment, couldn't afford the lifestyle she'd grown accustomed to. Sebastian, true to his word, had ended things with her the day we talked. Valentine tried to reconnect with him after she moved out, but he'd already moved on, apparently not interested in a relationship without the thrill of secrecy. She called me once, drunk, telling me how Sebastian wouldn't return her calls, how she'd lost everything. I hung up. The kids struggled, especially Lily. She had nightmares, acted out at school, needed therapy. Mason became more withdrawn, angry in ways that broke my heart. But slowly, with counseling and consistency, they began to heal. I reduced my hours at the hospital, hired a nanny to help when I had to work, made sure I was present for every school event, every game, every birthday. Valentine's first supervised visitation was awkward and painful. The kids were polite but distant. Mason barely spoke to her. Lily cried and asked why Mommy had forgotten her birthday. Valentine had no good answer. Over the following months, the visits remained strained. The kids began to dread them, would get anxious the day before, would be quiet and sad afterward. A year after the divorce was finalized, Mason told me he didn't want to see his mother anymore. He was 11 by then, old enough in Florida for his preference to matter in custody arrangements. Lily, at 8, echoed her brother's feelings. They felt abandoned, betrayed, and no amount of Valentine's apologies could rebuild that trust. I didn't force them. I went back to court, and Margaret helped modify the custody arrangement to allow the children to choose their level of contact. Mason stopped seeing Valentine entirely. Lily went to a few more visits, but eventually stopped as well. Valentine sends cards on birthdays and holidays. The kids don't open them. She tried to show up at Mason's soccer games last season, but he asked her to leave, told her she'd lost the right to be there when she'd missed the most important game of his life. She left crying. I sometimes wonder if I was too harsh, if I should encourage the kids to forgive their mother. But then I remember Lily's 7th birthday, her face as she waited for a mother who never came. I remember Mason standing alone at school. I remember all the times Valentine chose Sebastian over her family. The house feels different now. It's quieter without Valentine's presence, but it's also more peaceful. Cooper is happier. He doesn't whine at the door anymore. Mason made the all-star soccer team and is thriving. Lily joined a dance class and lights up when she performs. They're healing, slowly but surely. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Valentine lost several clients after the affair became public knowledge. Orlando's fitness community is smaller than you'd think. She had to take a second job at a retail store to make ends meet. Sebastian left Orlando entirely, moved to California from what I understand. Valentine is alone in her small apartment, working 2 jobs, unable to see her children, living with the consequences of her choices. I don't take pleasure in her struggles, but I don't feel guilty either. She made her decisions. She chose temporary excitement over lasting love. She chose herself over her children. Every person is responsible for the life they build and the bridges they burn. As for me, I'm focused on being the parent my kids deserve. I'm there for breakfast, for homework, for bedtime stories. I attend every school event, every game, every recital. I'm teaching Mason how to change a tire and Lily how to ride a bike without training wheels. I'm rebuilding what Valentine broke, one day at a time. Sometimes, late at night when the kids are asleep, I think about those 12 years of marriage. I think about the woman I thought I knew, the life I thought we were building. It's strange how quickly everything can fall apart, how one person's selfishness can destroy an entire family. But it's also strange how resilient children are, how love and consistency can heal even the deepest wounds. Mason asked me last week if I'd ever get married again. I told him I didn't know, that right now my focus was on him and his sister. He nodded and said, "Good. We don't need anyone else. We have each other." He's right. We have each other. And unlike Valentine, I'll never take that for granted. Cooper is sleeping at my feet as I write this, the kids are in bed, and the house is peaceful. This isn't the life I planned, but it's the life I'm building. One without lies, without betrayal, without someone who could forget their own child's birthday. Valentine lost everything that mattered. Her children don't forgive her, don't want to see her, don't trust her. She has to live with that knowledge every single day. She has to wake up alone in her apartment, knowing her kids are growing up without her, knowing she destroyed her family for an affair that lasted mere months. That's her punishment. Not jail, not poverty, but the loss of the people who loved her most. The knowledge that she traded everything real for something temporary. The understanding that her children look at her now with disappointment and hurt instead of love and admiration. Some wounds never fully heal. Some trust, once broken, can never be rebuilt. Valentine learned that the hard way. And me? I learned that I'm stronger than I thought, that my children are the most important thing in my life, and that sometimes the best revenge isn't grand or dramatic. Sometimes it's simply being present, being reliable, being everything the other person wasn't. Thank you for watching the video to the end. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. A playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to is now displayed on the screen. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.